Swedish mixed martial artist Khamzat Chimaev has shocked everyone by agreeing to what's quite possibly the biggest challenge of his career. In the announcement that came recently, Chimaev gave his word that he's up for fighting former welterweight title challenger Gilbert Burns. Keep watching this video for all the details. So how did the agreement come about? MMA star Khamzat Chimaev, who competes in the middleweight and welterweight divisions, recently agreed to a bout with former welterweight title challenger Gilbert Burns. The news came out after some time of both the fighters calling each other out and proposing a bout as Chimaev continued to climb the charts. It was actually over a text message that the two decided to arrange a fight. It was actually Burns himself who suggested they have a fight in May. When Chimaev agreed, Burns proceeded to suggest April 9th as the date when the two should have their anticipated contest. Chimaev posted the screenshot of his conversation on his Instagram story, tagging Burns along with a bunch of other emojis. Nothing has been formalized yet, but given the fame that both Burns and Chimaev have, it's very likely that they'll be granted a match this April. The announcement surprised fans and other fighters alike. Needless to say, everyone's excited for this fight whenever it takes place. Fans are only waiting on an official announcement so they can begin rooting for their favorite fighter of the two. What have Chimaev and Burns said about the agreement? The verbal agreement to fight this year between Khamzat Chimaev and Gilbert Burns has everyone hyped, as this could be Chimaev's career's biggest challenge. And if you didn't know, Burns has been on an involuntary hiatus as he hasn't been able to fight anyone ever since his July win against Colby Covington. A part of the reason why is the fact that Burns has been repeatedly turned down by various contenders. He said, "I'm already in negotiations for my next fight. A lot of people did not accept to fight me, so the negotiation has been a little more complicated. I keep watching fights, and when nobody in my division is fighting, I go crazy wishing that they would call me out, but nobody does. We'll see when this next fight comes. We've been negotiating. We're looking at an April slot. We're still trying to establish an opponent. It could be Chimaev. He's one of the few guys who has accepted, and we're still negotiating. We'll see. It could be him next." On the other hand, Chimaev hasn't made a public comment on his verbal agreement, but we know that this is major for him, and it would be understandable if it's concerning as well. This is because his to-be opponent's career is almost speckless, except for a recent defeat against Kamaru Usman. Who's supporting Chimaev against Kamaru Usman? Khamzat Chimaev is currently on the rise as number 11 in the welterweight division of the UFC. In his 4 UFC fights, Chimaev has lost only one, so obviously he's full of confidence. He's been praised for his back-to-back wins by the number 1 welterweight champ Kamaru Usman himself. However, he implied retiring before ever getting paired up against Chimaev inside the octagon. Chimaev and his teammate and former light heavyweight title challenger Alexander Gustafsson think otherwise. Chimaev believes he could easily be paired up with Usman and may be able to defeat him. Chimaev has the support of his training partner Gustafsson, who thinks he can do anything to Usman given the 2-inch advantage he has over him. Gustafsson also said, "I think he'd honestly put Kamaru Usman to sleep. I think if he just touches his chin, it's a big chance that Kamaru Usman goes to sleep," Gustafsson told ESPN. "I like Kamaru Usman. He's a great champ, and he's just been breaking records, and it's a pleasure to see him fight because he's a very good and technical. I love his jab and his wrestling, and you can see that he's on top, Kamaru Usman. But I just can't see him take Khamzat's punches." From a technical point of view, if Chimaev and Usman indeed end up fighting, it would be one of UFC's greatest events. Chimaev has been hugely successful this previous year with a win over Li Jingliang, but before that, the 27-year-old had to take quite a long break after being diagnosed with symptoms of COVID. So when he returns for a fight, we know he'd have a few new tricks up his sleeve, not only from the hiatus, but also because he'd be fighting the legend Kamaru Usman himself, where it would be time to use all cards on hand. Why was Chimaev restrained by security at an MMA event? At an MMA event in Sweden, Khamzat Chimaev was physically restrained by security, but what was the reason? Chimaev was attending a local MMA fight in his home country to watch one of his teammates' matches. In a contest that turned against his teammate, Chimaev couldn't help but get frustrated. In the video footage that's been released, a clearly irritated Chimaev slaps the tabletop before trying to enter the cage itself. Though it wasn't clear whether Chimaev's anger was directed at the referee for stopping the fight or his teammate's opponent, it was enough to convince him to jump over the fence and enter the cage. The Swede almost made it inside the cage before guards swooped in to try to prevent him from doing so. The guards made sure he couldn't enter the cage to make his way towards the fighters and escorted him back to his seat. The 27-year-old, with a record of fastest consecutive wins and quickest 3-fight winning streak, apparently can go any length for his teammates. One of his most notable teammates, as we mentioned before, is Alexander Gustafsson himself. What has Khamzat Chimaev said about Belal Muhammad? Chimaev knows no limits to what he says to fellow UFC stars. One of his most recent victims is top welterweight contender Belal Muhammad. Apparently, Chimaev thinks it would take 1 mere minute to take Bilal's head. It was actually Bilal who called Chimaev out, but Chimaev, who has struggled to find an opponent he thinks is worthy of his time, was quick to respond. He took to Twitter to declare how it would take him just a minute to absolutely crush Bilal Muhammad. He also referred to the time when Muhammad couldn't continue against Leon Edwards after an accidental eye poke. He said that someone who had to give up after getting a finger in his eye would never be able to face a martial artist like him. Along with Chimaev, Muhammad also called out various other UFC fighters such as Leon Edwards and Colby Covington. However, fighting against Chimaev is what excites him the most. This is because it would be his chance at derailing one of the quickest growing careers in the industry right now. This is also why, despite being kind of a downgrade considering Chimaev is at number 11, Muhammad would fight him the first chance he gets to. Doing something like sending an entire career into a slump is more valuable to Muhammad than fighting someone with a higher ranking. Muhammad actually said, "You go out there and beat a guy like that, you steal all of his hype, all of his shine, then you just beat the boogeyman." Do I think that he's this pay-per-view star because of those 4 wins? No, but the UFC does. If they think that, then I'm the one that's gonna have to put a stop to it. That's truly sinister if you think about it, but all is fair in love and UFC. How to watch UFC 270 this month? UFC 270 will take place on the 23rd of January, and given the scorecard, every MMA fan is going crazy as to where they can stream the matches if they don't have tickets to the actual event. UFC 270 will eventually get broadcasted live on BT Sport in the early hours of the 23rd of January. Those who have subscription for the channel can easily watch the event. However, if you don't have one, you can subscribe right now on the official website. The network also allows a monthly pass for a certain amount, which you can buy to stream the game without entering any long-term financial commitments. To remind you of the scorecard of this event, you'll see Francis Ngannou going up against Cyril Gane in one of the most awaited matches of UFC 270. Warlley Alves would fight Jack Della in the welterweight division, whereas Jared Cannonier would face Derek Brunson in the middleweight division, and those are just a few of the names that would enter the octagon to either fight for or defend their titles. The event will be watched by millions worldwide, which is also why streaming it is not the easiest task in the world. There's some networks that offer live streaming, such as the one we mentioned previously, but they're almost always paid. This is because a ticket to one of these events come at exclusive prices, so websites offering streaming services also charge money. If you want to watch it for free, you might have to wait some days. That was it for today's video. What are your predictions for the upcoming UFC 270? Who do you got? Let us know in the comments down below, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, where we post similar videos quite frequently. We'll see you in the next one.